The following is a conversation with Nabil Pervez, Chief Technical Officer and co-founder of AOE Creative and Blast Radius. AOE Creative is a creative design and marketing agency in the gaming, eSports, and nerd culture space. They do everything from branding, design, marketing, social media, and more, working with clients like Activision Blizzard, Red Bull, Lego, Team Liquid, Optic Gaming, Cloud9, and many more on projects like the Overwatch League, Call of Duty League, and even the mockumentary TV series Players on Paramount+. I hope you enjoy the first episode of the Competent Content Podcast, and a special thanks to my first guest, Nabil Pervez, for this great conversation you're about to listen to. If you want to learn more about AOE Creative, you can check out their website at aoecreative.com and follow Nabil at Nebtune, NEBTUNEFGC on Twitter. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
So I'm Nabil Pervez. I'm the co-founder and CTO of AOE Creative. I got my start in the industry originally just being a stream warrior. I was watching dozens of fighting game streams at the time. Evo was a religious holiday for me. But I met a friend, Justin Varghese, JV, at a party after my friends shuffled us together in like a weird blind friend date situation. They're like, hey, you're the weird fighting game guy. We met another one. He's really cool. You guys should hang out. And meeting him changed my life. And we got to talk as he was beating my tail in Smash Bros. For 64. We were talking about a lot of like existential things. Like we talked a lot about like how fighting games have taught us life lessons, how we've become better people because of the things we learned through fighting games, about all these different things that I feel like I never really had that type of conversation with anybody else. So we really hit it off. And at the time I was creating content for Street Fighter 4. I was a top 200 Dudley. And my gimmick was I would call out the thing that I was about to hit the person with on an open mic. So they would hear me talk to them, Dr. Disrespect style, and like talk trash to them, like indirectly. Like I'm talking to the stream and telling them all the crazy stuff that's going on in the match and why this guy's an idiot. And then I would call out, I'm about to hit him with an overhead, one frame link into roundhouse. We're going to take him with EX machine gun blow to the corner. We're going to put him on his back and he's going to do it again and he's going to lose.
So you were good. You were good.
I was okay. Being around top players made me realize like being around top players throughout shoutcasting after meeting JV made me realize like I was okay. But imposter syndrome it comes from getting higher and higher up the mountain and realizing how much you don't know. The more awareness you have, the more you're like, oh God, there's so much I don't know. So JV and I, after meeting and really hit it off, we started, he came to me with the idea of like, hey, you're good at talking on camera and you clearly know your stuff about fighting games. And I know my stuff about fighting games. I think we have we're good buddies. We're friends. Let's try this thing on camera. So we reached out to Tourney Locator and asked if we could, come shoutcast for them. So they were gracious and allowed us on a set. I don't understand how, because we got on, and while we were god awful commentators, we had excellent chemistry, and there was an electricity there that it felt like the people there enjoyed and the team at Tourney Locator enjoyed. So they kind of gave us this proposition of, hey, listen, I think you guys, there's something here. Why don't you come here and brush up with us for the next couple of months, see if you can get good, learn the game, get better. And, maybe we'll talk about sponsorship. So 3 months later, we were sponsored. And from there, we traveled all over North America, shoutcasting regionals, nationals. Eventually that led to me having opportunities to shoutcast for CPT top eights, cast for Amazon, Red Bull, Blizzard, Activision. JV
Wow.
and I were lucky enough to win the So You Think You Can Cast Hearthstone competition. So that's how we got to start working with Blizzard. So I think the largest crowd I think I've ever shoutcasted for was 70,000 people. So
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good times. But the deeper it felt like we went into that side of the business, the quicker I realized how unsustainable it can be, or how much I wasn't it wasn't what I wanted in the long term. So I don't want to live out of a hotel room, out of a suitcase. I want to eventually have a family. I want to, settle down. I want consistent money. And it felt like none of that was going to happen working in front of the camera, at least not easily for me. So while I was working in front of the camera, I started working behind the camera in marketing. So we were doing I was running marketing for Trinity Locator at some point after they asked me to come on professionally, and after that it shifted to like, hey, do you want to just become part of the org? Like, instead of sponsor, just be part of us. And that included not only shoutcasting for them but also running their marketing. So was growing that brand from like 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers on a minimal budget, trying to increase our connections to all these other top players. And eventually it increased in turnouts because all these players that I was lucky enough to meet, I got to bring them over to our Southern staple with Low Tier City. So we started to kind of build that reputation and get bigger. And while we were doing that, I was just doing normal outreach when I met the team at PvP Live, which at the time was a eSports journalist outlet that was actually here in Dallas. And, I became friends with them, Dustin Steiner and the rest of that team over there. And when the opportunity came up and they said, hey, we need a marketer, you interested? I said, sure, let's do this full time. So I kind of took the leap of faith. I quit the job and working in IT. I jumped into it full time and I ran marketing, influencer marketing for that team, grew them from 10,000 followers to 100,000 followers, brought in 30% of their users every month, which we had about 3 million users every month. So at least at the peak. And it was a fun challenge. But one of the big reasons I actually joined that team was because Markel Lee was on that team. And Markel is a friend of mine now for about just south of 10 years. Whenever I would shoutcast events on my side of town for Smash, him and the Versus Gameplay guys would be running events on the other side of town for Street Fighter and FPS and Mortal Kombat. And I would come shoutcast their events. And so Markel would be behind the camera, I would be in front, and we were good. We were good buddies. We both kind of saw things the same way. But I thought his graphic design was phenomenal and innovative and really taking things to the next level. So when I saw that Markel was at PvP Live, that was like, to me, a big reason why I was like, I want to work with this guy. I was willing to take a pay cut to work with this guy. And it was phenomenal because I got to sit. I pretty much he was like my tag team partner for a lot of stuff when it comes to everything visual design. Right, it was him and Joe Yzma from Morning Glory. Shout out to Joe. But I would come and just sit next to Markel and watch him work and like absorb how he's doing graphic design. And we would talk a lot. We'd go to lunch every day and we would have all these ideas of like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could do these type of marketing activations? Wouldn't it be cool if an esports team did these types of things?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool? And kind of had those moments where it's like, you don't think anything of it, but it's like the daydreaming kind of moments, like you really just brainstorm and just had a good time. Because we both came from the fighting community, we really bonded. And one morning he says, hey, let's go to lunch. I got someone I want you to meet. And little did I know that was the beginning of Infinite Esports Entertainment. He took me to lunch and introduced me to someone and who pretty much we had that conversation of, so all those things that we've been dreaming of, we're going to do it. We're going to do it with Optic. We're going to do it, and we're going to try to get an Overwatch League team, and we're going to try to see if we can build all those things that we've been dreaming of. So I left PvP Live to start working at Infinite, and it was such a weird experience because it was in the same building as PvP Live. I literally worked 6 rows down from where I previously sat at PvP Live.
I feel like that doesn't happen very often. You're like, just really right down the hallway.
It was really right down the hallway.
That's strange.
It was very interesting because all the C-suite people would see me again and like, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm working.
Work here. That's so interesting and funny. Wow.
It was wild. And, from there, I got to, it was me, Markel, but we also got to meet Simon Bennett, who was VP of marketing. And the three of us really meshed really well. There were lots of things that we kind of all like really like, we all spoke the same language. We all were like kind of in that same sync. Markel and Simon in particular, they literally they were inseparable. And cool. It was one of those things where like we amidst everything that was kind of really going on, we really got to focus on the Houston Outlaws and build that team from scratch. And we really got to think through every level of it, from like logo and brand pyramid, voice and tone. How does this whole thing function, right? Mm-hmm. And we got to put together an award-winning campaign called Band Together. Because while we had a really unique opportunity to have South Texas as our region, truthfully, it's a little bit tricky. For people that aren't native Texans, they won't fully understand this, but like competition is in our blood as a Texan. It doesn't matter what we're competitive in, but we're competitive, right? Whether that's football, which everyone's going to talk about, or even band, I was competitive in theater in high school. Like I got offered scholarships because of it. Like competition is in our blood. It doesn't matter what.
I agree.
And naturally, each one of the cities is a sports city. So between Houston, San Antonio, and Austin, they're all competitive against each other in some regards. So we had to band together among all these cities and bring them all together throughout different ways. And our mindset of how do we make them mingle together and make friendships and get them to kind of rally together around the Outlaws as that center team, right? We don't need to necessarily win everything, but we need to be everyone's second favorite team, right? We don't need to start fights. We need to finish them, right? So we really tried to do our best to adopt that mindset. And that's why we did a lot of things that were firsts, right? We did the first player tour, right? We did the first pop-up shop. We did the first time we shut down a whole city block and rented out a Jumbotron. Cool. We hit every single trade show in South Texas, from RTX to Comet Palooza, everything in between. And the Outlaws were there. And we saw insane turnouts. Like we were easily the most engaged with team in all of Overwatch League Season 1, the most tweeted about, the most like followed. Like it was bananas how insane the community was connected with us. I have footage of people screaming T-Mobile in T-Mobile cosplay because they loved the sponsor so much. And we had positioned them in the right way.
That's actually awesome.
It was the dream for a non-endemic to come in, and that's the response you get is phenomenal.
Wow.
So we really, I feel like, had something special with the Outlaws. And I think other teams in the space noticed it, right? We had other people that were saying, hey, you guys are crushing it. Can you do that for us? And our hands were tied at the time. We couldn't do anything for them because we work for Infinite, and all of our services go to the brands at Infinite. Now, when Infinite, kind of, nosedived, we left and started AOE. And truthfully, we didn't expect to have a lot of, attention out the gate. We thought maybe we'll get first 2-3 months, we'll work on our brand. We'll pick things up. We'll kind of build how we look. But but week one, we had 3 clients
Yeah.
out the gate.
That's awesome.
So from there, we've
That's
just
so
been
cool.
working our butts off. We started off in Simon's tiny apartment with $40 of IKEA furniture and a very large, loud dog. Shout outs to Yama. And we built from there, right? So
Mhm.
we kind of put together things, got a little bit bigger, got enough to the point where we did like the San Francisco style life, got like a house. Everybody kind of worked out of it. From there, we then got bigger, and now we're south of 30 people, and we have like a 5,000 square foot space near Shops at Legacy, like look like a proper agency. And we're really lucky that our clients are everyone from Activision Blizzard, Red Bull, Lego Games, anyone from tier one esports teams to game developers and everything in between. So we're really lucky. Not only that, we've gotten to the point where we've also had to split up into multiple different businesses. So we have AOE, we have Blast Radius, Super Kaiju Nation, and there's still more to come. So
Mhm.
we keep busy.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's awesome just to see, like, hear all that, see where you've started to like where you've come now and where you're still going. And just like it just keeps going. And it sounds like, you still have like the fire and the passion, and it's just kind of keep going forward, even from all the way back when you were just.
I think the primary motivator for me was early on in the events. When we were doing the Outlaws, I had this. I got to go to. I was running local marketing for the Outlaws, so
Mhm.
I getting to meet the fans, and I had this interaction where it was so interesting, where this fan was so fired up, and they say, "Finally, there is something here for me.
Mm.
There's a team that
Yeah.
represents me and my interests," right? A Texan who's been competitive all their life, but has never had a platform for themselves to be represented or feel represented, right? That was like
Yeah, I agree. I
powerful
agree.
for me.
Especially like, yeah, when the Overwatch League came along. I mean, I was a Dallas Fuel fan at the
Sure.
beginning. I'm not gonna lie, being from the
A
area,
lot of people
but
were.
I was also following the Outlaws a lot because I thought it was cool. We had 2 teams just in Texas, and just like seeing all the stuff that was kind of going on with like the team, as well as kind of like I feel like there was a little bit of an in-state rivalry because it was like either half the people wanted one team, half the people wanted the other. So yeah, I agree. It was really cool to follow, but I definitely understand that feeling of just being like, there's this thing here that like, not just football, not just basketball, but like something I could go, right down, like they were down there at the American Airlines Center, as like I know that's where like Envy's office and like everything was. Um, it was cool to just have something local and just like have people locally. Like I would see people wearing like Dallas Fuel shirts around sometimes, and I was like, wait, what? This is like real? I was like, no way. I was like, I would not imagine this as like a kid. Like just like as soon as it came along, I was like, this is cool.
It's pretty fun, man. To me, like at the end of the day, I think my mindset is we want to do. I just want to do cool shit with cool people. At the end of the day,
Mm.
like you can't take it with you, and at the end of the day, like everything I make can and will be superseded at some point through time, through innovation, through technology. It will always be superseded, right? But the thing that you can't take away is how you make people feel. So
Mm.
what I want to do is make cool stuff that makes people feel happy and enjoy, if even if I make their lives a little bit better, right? That's what my motivation is. How do I make people's lives better? Through creative ways, through my way, you know? So that meeting that fan kind of made all that click with me and kind of put that in my head of like, ah, that's my why. That's why God put me here. All right, let's make it work.
Mm. That's very inspirational. I definitely that is really cool. Yeah, neat experience. All right, well, I guess like kind of touching on some of the stuff you said, especially, I did watch the Law of Esports podcast that they had you on. Shout out to them. It was a very, very good
Great guys.
episode. You know, some of the things like you kind of already mentioned there, and you mentioned again, when you kind of got your start watching streams, watching tournaments online, Evo, kind of watching like on every monitor you could kind of get a stream on, and like you were a big fan. And I definitely feel that. You mentioned that kind of at the beginning for esports, it wasn't really about the money for players.
Yeah.
Do you still believe that kind of stands true? Or like, do you think some esports rise above others because of the money, or like because of franchising now, with things like Overwatch League, Valorant's doing the same thing. You have CDL. Do you think it's changed a lot? Because I know that fighting games, being that they are traditionally 1v1, more smaller, it can maybe be a little different. So it might be separate for them, but kind of where do you see that?
That's a really good question. So, I think that at the end of the day, money is what drives competition to get that much higher, right? Mm-hmm. Like the money and the stakes that are out there will force you to think, okay, well, I have to take it that much more seriously. It's this amount of money on the line. But I think that if you really were in it for the money, you would have just been an accountant. Like you would have just picked something that's guaranteed safety and you're going to make it 6 figures and big chill. Like, there's a lot easier ways to find the money, right? But I think that at the core of it, from my experience around top players, from my experience around coaches and excellent content creators and talented people that are in the space, there's something that's more core to it, right? Like at the end of the day, the money is great, right? And we want more money. Everyone wants more money. We want more freedom, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, people are going to be competing for $10 in a rock, paper, scissors tournament at the end of the day because competition's still in them. Competition's in their blood. And it's just, this is their platform for it, right? Whether it's Street Fighter to League of Legends, like the money wasn't always there. And now it's getting bigger, sure. And it gives us more validity and professionalism and all that stuff. That's cool. But at the heart of it, at the core of it, our community is driven by people that just have a fire in them to say, I'm better than what I was yesterday, and I'm better than you. And they want to have that drive to push themselves to the next level, to see how far that they can go. I think the money for some people, yeah. I mean, they want to be able to have the freedom to do this constantly and consistently. So the money helps, and it helps elevate them to the point where they can continue to do these types of things and get better every day. So do I think someone pushes themselves to go into, Fortnite or League of Legends to be a millionaire? No. They're a guy like anybody else that like says, I really love doing this and I want to keep doing this. I could use some money to keep going. And then, they find themselves higher up there and making that type of money. And it's like, okay, now I want to keep going. Now it's more fuel for the fire. Now I want to keep pushing. But I think it always starts from someplace genuine and pure.
Yeah. That's one thing I've always kind of like wondered with esports. There's some games that, I've loved. I've been a big fan of World of Warcraft since like I was little, and I've always like watched the AWC, like the Arena World Cup or Champion. I always forget what it stands for, but like watching it and just seeing some of the players like kind of like not be able to still support themselves or be able to play that game at such a high, like crazy level, as well as like there's a period of time with a kind of like a tournament, a channel on a guy who now works for Blizzard. I don't know if you're familiar, but like it used to be GCD TV. And this guy I think his name is The Machine, who now runs kind of like their AWC stuff. He works for Blizzard directly now, but he did all this online stuff and he like created all these like spectator tools and everything. And there was so much hype and like people were like, even like donating and stuff at the time to help support like players and stuff at the time. Because frankly, I wish that the prize pool of the AWC was bigger, because a lot of the players are like, hey, like I can't do this anymore. I need to make money. I have a family,
enough money to like feed my family.
Yeah. So a lot of them are content creators. Like a lot of them are OGs of WoW, like, or they've gone on to do casting. A big one I would say is like his name goes by Venruki, and like he won BlizzCon back in the day, was like on a team with like Reckful, on a team with those kinds of people. And, now he's like, does a lot of like casting stuff or whatever at the events and whatever.
That's the thing that is the most nice is like when it comes to, of course, when it comes to the money side of things. Part of the reason why I feel like so many players like are they go super well and then just nosedive. They don't think about the support net that comes or the passive incomes that come afterwards. It's the same thing with shoutcasters as well too. Shoutcasting especially, you are only as good as your last at bat. And if you
Yeah.
are out of like if you're out of rotation for a couple of events, you just might lose relevancy and you just lose all that brand equity that you previously had in the space. So it's like we move fast in this space, super quick. So things like content creation, I think is incredibly important. No matter if you're a player, no matter if you're a caster. The thing is that the in our community right now, I think the biggest thing is finding stability in terms of income, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for me as a caster, I can count that I'm going to get paid every event, right? If you show up as a player, there's no guarantee you're going to show up with amount. Especially in the fighting game community, you're lucky enough to make enough money for your flight back. Like it's pretty rough out there.
Mm.
My favorite moment was I was shoutcasting Aftershock when West Balls, this famous Falco player, was playing Project M, and he was playing Project M and Melee, and tournament's over. I come out, and West Balls is like fuming. He's pissed. He's like, I played so badly. I came so short, and which is a common thing when it comes to top players. You just go to him, you say congrats on your placement, and then you move on. But he, and I come up and, I'm tired. I say, hey, man, you played well. Congrats on your placement. You did pretty well. He's like, I played like shit. And I had that moment where it's like, you know what? I could jerk his chain and like play into his ego and say, all this, like comfort him and all this other stuff. Or I could just be like raw with it. So I said, fuck it. Let's go for it. So I said, you know what, Weston, you are right. You are overrated. You are an overhyped Falco. You lost to some jank bullshit because you couldn't figure out a knowledge check fast enough and you're supposed to be a top player.
Mm-hmm.
You're garbage. And he got fired up and he got right back in my face. He's like, yo, how much money did you make off of this event? And I said, more than you, fucker. And everyone pops off. D1 and the rest of the guys like, oh, everyone in that crowd loses their mind. And from there, he had a flash in his eyes at the moment of, I think I'm going to punch this guy in the face to, okay, I like you. You talk shit with me. You're like the boys. All right, let's go get IHOP afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And he spent the rest of the night talking about Melee and stupid Falco tech. Like it, at the end of the day, people do what they do in this community because they love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other things that we can do in this world that will pay us more money. But money isn't at the heart of it. Money, like we start because, we love it. And then we want the money to have the freedom to do the things that we want to do while continuing to do that because we're excellent at it and we should get paid what we're worth.
Yeah. That's definitely interesting. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. Continuing on, what esports do you currently watch and why?
It's a good question. I have varying reasons for all of them. I would say so. VCT, I was watching it this morning. Rocket League, Street Fighter, Smash. I started dabbling in a little bit of League of Legends, Runeterra. I dabbled a little bit in Wild Rift. What else? I Counter-Strike for certain majors, and is there anything else? I kind of dabble with a lot of them. Now, for each one of them, some of them are from personal interest to like I play the game, I enjoy the game, to I just want to watch for production.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really care that much about the game, but I care about how production is like solving these puzzles, right? Apex is another one that I watch. And for me, I whenever I started watching Apex and PUBG, I thought the battle royale genre as a whole was like super cool. In the not in the ways of gunfights and all this stuff, but in terms of storytelling, I feel like storytelling in terms of battle royales is some of the best that you can get in some regards. Like, think about it. You can talk about a team that dropped in super hot, barely won this fight, scraped together something, actually ended up having to retreat and find another place, picked up a bunch of scraps, put it all together, took a handful of fights while, working their way to the center, and with minimal resources managed to scrape out a win. That's a dope story, right? And there's so many different teams that can come from so many different angles. Maybe you're the opposite side of that first drop. You won on that other side of the team fight, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're sitting there, you have tons of resources. How are you using those? And are you coasting? Are you taking more fights? Are you just chilling and trying to see if you can avoid the fights and then scraping together all that economy and just working towards into an interesting fight at the end? Like, there's so many different ways that you can play it out in a battle royale. But I felt like the production, especially at the beginning of PUBG, was not great. I think the casters were doing their best, but I think it was so much information that you're working through at the same time. I think it's incredibly difficult to I think the story potential is really high, but I think the capabilities that's necessary from production staff, but also from the casters, it is so incredibly high. And even the technology that comes with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's such an interesting problem to try to solve. And I feel like Apex has come the furthest as a production standpoint from where they were to where they're at now. I think VCT is a great example of what you can do in terms of your stage production and how you can make things really interesting, or how they even market all their events leading up to it. Yeah. I think it's really interesting in terms of the visual style that they go for each one of them, how they incorporate that into the game, and sometimes a new agent that's coming out, how are they storytelling for the teams, and how are they building up those teams as far as narratives going. But I think on the other side of the question, I think in terms of the production, it's also interesting to see how they evolve over time, right? I want to see where they were at the beginning to where they are now. If you look at how they branded LCS from the beginning to where they're at now, it's the icon itself doesn't change a ton. They've streamlined it over the years, right? But then it's the look and feel every year that changes completely different. Or it's how they put out their music video every year with a new song, new theme, new animation style that makes it seem like, God, I want to watch this. This is so hype. You know what I mean? So to me, the esports sometimes is just the medium for storytelling. And I'm interested in how they solve the equation of the storytelling, because each game comes with unique challenges and angles for how to try to sort through it and solve it,
Yeah. I definitely, I agree with your point on looking at production value, but then storytelling and how I definitely find myself getting a lot more engaged with esports that do a good job of both having good production quality, but then also engaging you with the backgrounds of the teams and the players. And you kind of they kind of grow to be this personality, and you find out who's behind them rather than just be a face. And you see them play this game, you actually get involved. And I know Valorant was doing that with a lot of the behind the scenes stuff of interviewing the players and the families and stuff that I was wow, this is actually awesome.
I think a great example of people who have actually really done a good job of honing in, because don't get me wrong, like I said, at the end of the day, we're a bunch of nerds that play games really competitively, right? I feel like the team that has struck the best balance between both worlds is Beyond the Summit. I feel especially with their Smash Summit series, I think they've struck a really nice balance of both feeling it they can have it's a super nice production. It feels really good, but it's in a house, dude. And it's a bunch of dudes that are getting together, playing Smash and just having a good time. I feel there's sometimes this disconnect when it comes to esports where everyone feels we have to push this super high pedestal. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes it feels disingenuous, right? I feel at the end of the day, we are nerds that are playing games competitively, and we can't lose sight of that, because that's at our core. That's our heart.
I agree.
So I think there's nothing wrong with increasing the production value, but also not losing sight of who we are at the end of the day.
The core of it. Yeah. The competition, the gaming, and that environment. I agree.
I think it's a healthy balance that we have to strike. And I think that it's part of what keeps us real. It keeps us authentic.
Keeps it authentic. Yeah. I agree.
And sometimes deviating so far from it, well, yeah, you might be able to bring in the sponsor bucks, and yeah, you can change some of that up. I think there's like a healthy balance. I think Beyond the Summit right now is where it feels like it fits the most. But I think that that's the same type of thing where as our community evolves, the expectations will also evolve over time too. You know, people from my era, like the boomers, I remember a lot of like, you know, I know about Melty Bud being played in like a Lowe's parking lot, like grand finals being played there or in the bathroom because power went out on their setups. Like I get it. Like, you know, I remember that. There's a part of me where it's like, you know, I remember those times, but for me, I want to see things grow and get bigger and get more extravagant, right? And I think you should have those big premier super high tier events that almost feel like they're so unobtainable and they're so godlike, as long as we also have the things that are like the Beyond the Summits, where it's like we don't lose track of who we are. We are humbled, you know. We're nerds playing video games that are fortunate enough to get paid a shit ton of money to do it.
Getting more behind that, you know, you talked about your experience with shoutcasting and like your experience with that, like how you started. How would you view kind of like either casting or hosting from where you started to compare to where it is now? Do you say it's changed a lot, you know, with the things like, you know, there's a couple people that you see kind of, I would say like even across video games. Would you say like it's changed a lot from where like you started to where it is now kind of a thing? Or would you say it's still kind of like the same, just
it's
gung-ho kind of mentality or like a kind of thing
going? I would say it's even more selective than it was back when I started. I think it's even harder to be a shoutcaster now than it was when I was younger. I think the expectations are higher. But I think that there are I think that there are a couple of different ways to get to that place, whether that's through content creation, shoutcasting your locals, and then networking and knowing the right people. But I think shoutcasting is harder, is definitely harder now than when I was doing it. But I also think that the ability for people to create content has become easier, and you are now only really limited to your creativity and your time. So I think that if you really ended up wanting to get into that field, I would think that if you would focus on shoutcasting on your own events or someone else's events online or something like that, as well as creating your content and having people ultimately come back to you, and then, you know, shaking hands with the right people, networking with the right people, you can get there eventually. I think that I think right now though, it largely really you need to have a really strong portfolio. You really need to have a strong reel, really have to have strong content creation. Because I don't think just being able to jump on a mic, be hype, and sound, you know, like a fun guy to have a beer with is really the way that you're going to consistently get gigs. Of course, there's exceptions to those rules, but I think it's really tough right now. I think people have to really think about their brand and what makes them different to separate out from the pack. And if that's something that TOs and people really want, if that's what the community really wants to listen to. So I think you can still make it happen. It's just, you really need to focus on what it is that you're offering.
Do you have any casters or hosts or analysts that you follow or look up to, or like people you always enjoy watching because, you know, they bring their A game, they're just really good at their craft? Anybody kind of like that?
Hypoc and Pansy are the first ones that I think of from VCT. Pansy has had such a road, dude. Like, she was not treated. She has had a come up. I think she had a tough time at the beginning of CSGO. I think her style, I think she had a lot of critics, and some of them had valid complaints, others didn't. But she really, she stuck with it in CSGO, came and crushed it in PUBG, was phenomenal at that, and then has shifted now to Valorant with Hypoc, which, by the way, Hypoc is one of the nicest people I've met in my life. He's phenomenal. And I think they're such a good pair together. For me, that's my standout pair right now. I think back in my day, Um, Anders and Semler were like my go-to guys whenever I first was studying. Um, Sadokist and Henry G was where I think JV and I really could like we matched the same energy in terms of their banter and being fun and playful and having the way to really sell it. You know, I feel like we really identified with them. Um, for me personally, I really looked up to Yipes when I first started casting. Yipes was, oh man, I idolized Yipes. There were so many casters in fighting it. Yipes, James Chen, Ultra David, like Chris Matrix, um, Chris Who, like all these guys in the fighting game community. I idolized them all so much whenever I was first coming up that in order to practice commentating, I used to do impressions of them because I would focus so much on the things that made them unique in themselves. And I would isolate each pieces of them to originally create some of the first Neptune voice. You know what I mean? Like I really studied those people so much. Like I really wanted it so bad. Like I would go commentate a night, right? I would commentate 3 nights a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after, I would go back and rewatch VODs of myself and take it, like analyze my commentary and tear it apart for like, okay, well, I said this, there's ways that I could condense this into this, or I use this word too many times. I literally put together a spreadsheet for word replacement theories. And I would go as many levels deep as I could to try to figure out different ways that I could say things. How would I better phrase this? How could I summarize this better? How can I improve my technique? What kind of enunciation, alliteration can I use for these types of ways to deliver things? I really tried to do my best to be a wordsmith. So I felt like I learned a lot from the fighting game community. Initially, I went and studied the Black Plague. I went and studied A Tribe Called Rest. D1 was another guy who I really watched and changed over the years. Prague is another person where I really tried to watch him and think through, like, because he was the opposite for me in a lot of ways. And I really was like, I can't just keep doing what I'm doing. I need to learn from people that are so insightful and thoughtful about the game and how they're condensing things and putting it together at the time. Because at the time I sound like JR from WWE. Like I was just like through the table. Like I was all hype, no substance. And I really wanted to I needed to find a dynamic, right? Because if you have nothing but peaks, then there's no such thing as valleys and everything is flat. And it doesn't matter. If everything is hype, nothing is hype. It does not matter. And you need to be able to sell people understanding and caring about pixels, right? So I really tried to do my best to listen to everybody from Smash, from FGC to Counter-Strike to even StarCraft and try to like think through what made all these casters unique and their voices unique. And then after I really felt like I understood esports, I then went to the NBA. And then I went and listened to all these casters in the NBA. And then I went and listened to the NHL and listened to all these guys. Like one of my favorite guys is he shoutcasted for hockey. His name was Razor, and he would have Razorisms, right? He would say things that didn't make any sense when you actually like look at the sentence itself. But when you paired it with the visuals, it would make perfect sense. Or there are shoutcasters in hockey that would say words that are not actually words, but you understood what he meant. Right.
Yeah. I think hockey is unique in that sense too, especially with the fan base and everything. Like the energy there is like so. I'm not like a huge hockey fan, but anytime I watch or listen to hockey, like I'm just like, I'm in it. I'm in it.
But the thing that's so cool about it is like, and then they're like, so I would listen to hockey for the ways that they would describe things would be really neat. Right.
Yeah.
Like you say the word skitter. Skitter isn't a word, but if I talk about the puck skitters across the ice, you can kind of have a visual for how that looks, right?
Yeah.
Or
I get what you mean.
But with NBA, it was how they would square up and deliver a line that's very punchy and impactful. Those are things to me that were really cool that I took away from the NBA. From NFL, it was actually a good amount of like Tony Romo actually, and how he thought through analysis and how he delivered those things. Granted, he's a genius. Like his delivery is not great, in terms of like how he is saying the information, but the information itself that he's delivering is brilliant. It is so good. Him, like, and Troy, like, the thing is like Tony Romo to me is like, he is the best example of a player that transitions into being on the mic, because truthfully, shoutcasting is a skill set. And just because you are a top player does not mean you will make an excellent shoutcaster. It is not the case. There are people that will say, yeah, you did great, because they're fans of that player. Does it mean his actual delivery was great? No, not in the slightest. Because shoutcasting is storytelling about pixels in our particular genre. And that's kind of a unique skill set that you really need to like build and flex and craft. You don't get it from playing the game necessarily. You get it from playing the game, talking to top players, thinking through like how you can deliver things better, and thinking through the narrative that you're trying to pitch and how you're going to do it, and the wordsmithing that gets you there. Wordsmithing is your tech skill.
Yeah, definitely. You talking about like, I always love listening to people, how they kind of hone their craft and just get better at it. And, you know, I don't think I've heard too many people who have, or even talked to too many people who have kind of casting experience and hear that behind the scenes, and then just actually knowing that like you've gone to so many different sources to absorb all these different strategies and methods of just like how to do better. Because, you know, some people, I think they're watching this and they're just like, how did this person get in this position? What are they doing? What are their strengths? How do I get there? But, you know, they don't know kind of the steps to take, or exactly the amount of work it really takes behind the scenes. I guess talking about, more about like chemistry, would you say chemistry is maybe just as important as like knowing how to cover the game better, or particularly, you know, especially being like they're a face or a voice of an event, if there's just like no chemistry at all, or they're just better at talking about the game, or would you think a balance, or would you prefer one or the other?
It depends on the role that you're fulfilling. If you're play-by-play versus analyst versus host, all of those completely different. And I would say that there's like, if you RPG it, right, it's like different attributes, and like the sweet spot for each one of them is different depending on the role, right? I think there needs to be a level of chemistry that you need to have, and charisma that needs to be relatively high for you to be able to have any of those jobs. And I think that there is a level of humor and being able to laugh at yourself to be able to have those roles to begin with. I'll give you a thought process here. Like, you are on camera for literal hours at a time, working your butt off, trying to keep people entertained and caring about pixels, right? And at some point, you're going to say something stupid. It is unavoidable. And you need to have the mental strength and the humor and the humility to be like, I messed up. It's cool. Roll off the shoulders. Keep going.
Yeah.
I think that's that's part of why I see some casters kind of tunnel vision is they focus so much on one way or the other, like super focused on the game or super focused on what they think. Truthfully, I think my school of commentary is I care about selling the game to you. The players and the action that's happening on the screen, they are king. I am not. That's what matters at the end of the day. Now, if you enjoy how I tell the story, great. Follow me on Twitter. I don't care. You know, at the end of the day, I'm here to use my charisma, my knowledge of the game, and my ability to work with a team, not only my co-caster, but my production staff, to tell the best story for everyone at home so they can fall in love with the game. They can enjoy the tournament, and they want to tune in next year. So hopefully I'll be there then. And the TO keeps paying me because he understands that I've done all these things for them. If I'm a host, it's largely the same, but it's more on the that NBA mindset of how do I stand to deliver things effectively, you know, and get people excited about what they're about to see, and have that banter and rapport with the crowd. I think all of them require different skill sets, but at the end of the day, I think it's what's your mental strength and what's your wordsmithing and what's your delivery, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. Segueing further into the business side of kind of AOE and like your career now, you had a lot of experience marketing and marketing background in marketing. You do a lot of, I think you wear a lot of different hats and you have a lot of different skill sets now. But what would you say led kind of into your passion for marketing? What brought you to that? As well as like, starting out, you talked about influencer marketing. How'd you kind of get started in that? And then what you're doing now, kind of what marketing do you still partake in now?
I started by just doing it for Attorney Locator. I think that's kind of the best advice I would give everyone is just start trying. But I think my motivation comes from some place pure of I just want more people to love video games as much as I love video games, even if it's just there's like a piece of it. I just want them to love video games more.
Yeah.
And I want it to be part of our societal norm, right? Like when I grew up, I got stuffed in lockers for loving nerdy stuff, you know? So I want my kids and their kids to be able to grow up and video games are just as valid or as norm and as football, basketball, anything else, right? So my motivation is relatively pure, I would imagine, right? Albeit a bit selfish. I want to be able to have kids and be able to play video games with them, and I'm the cool dad, right?
Yeah.
So I think that with that pure of a motivation, it leads me down the roads to thinking more about how do you bring attention to things that are cool that you think other people that are like you will enjoy, right? Like, I guess I've always had this mindset of like, there's stuff that I think is cool. And I just think that I want to be able to bring more light to those things. That's why like all the clients that we bring on at AOE, I stand by all of them, right? Like if we don't think something's sick, we're not going to work on the project, you know? So it's one of those things where it's like, so if your mindset is all, if your mindset and your intentions, you're pure, your marketing is also going to come out pure. It's going to be correct. It's going to, because you love what you love what you're talking about and you just want to share that with more people. I think that there's a lot of ways that you can do that. I think influencer marketing is a hyper targeted way to do it right now. And I think that it's a great way to have a direct link into those specific demographics that you are looking for. I think that I think it's only getting started and it's only getting stronger over time. I think people are looking for these people to kind of act as curators, and they can just simply subscribe to that curator because there's so much content that's out there. They're going to focus and create the stuff that these people actually care about, which increases in brand loyalty to these guys. Ultimately, influencers will have the majority of the power going forward in the next 4 to 5 years, which currently the agencies make that even easier for people to kind of buy in and do those types of things. So I think a great example is Knight. I think their creators are incredible and incredibly powerful and have a huge amount of influence, right? But you need the money to play the game with them. I think as far as like how so I guess to kind of talk about how I kind of think through it. My mindset is I kind of started from the why and then I just started building out, right? So influencer marketing was one of them. How do we do digital marketing? How do we do video ads? How do we do, how do we hone in on the message that what we're trying to send and make sure that the brand's messaging is correct? How do we present the brand? All those pieces kind of lead into like that ultimate goal of how do I present the coolest thing that I think it is to all these other people in the most effective manner. There's just a zillion ways that you can do it. And I'm constantly learning and thinking, okay, what's the best way to do it? Some people, it makes sense to do influencer marketing. Sometimes it doesn't. You just need paid ads. Sometimes you need to have an excellent brand to kind of do it. Sometimes that community doesn't care and they just want a shit post and they just want something that, matches that same mindset. cool, like it's all about tailoring the experience for what the target demographic is, and speaking the right language. Because let's be frank, in our community, you don't come in with zero credibility, you come with negative credibility. There is a large bullshit meter in the gaming community, the gaming audience, because for the longest time, we've been the guys that got stuffed in lockers, and now we're the cool guys and we have the power, right? It's cool to be a nerd now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What, now, where were you then? Why are you interested now? Now that we're the cool guys, now you want to come through and hang out
Who's
with
gotten
me?
popular and mainstream and attention in the media and money and the big business opportunities now. I get what you mean.
Especially when it comes to sports. Think about it. All these sports have significantly higher ages of their average user, right? 50, 40, 60, 30, like all these people that are average age of their users is really high versus gaming and esports, 16. All these sports are aging out. They need us. They want to work with us. We don't need them. We only want the money and some of the connections and the sponsorships and things like that, right? That's why you're seeing all these connections from all these sports into esports. They're trying to keep relevancy. They're trying to convert back and forth.
Do you have a dream client or influencer you would want to work with someday?
Riot Games. And I can't say whether or not we are or not working with them right now.
Oh, okay. I won't ask any more questions about that. Any specific reason why Riot? You just like the games, like what they're doing, like the people, like the mission kind of thing?
In my opinion, I do not think there is a better creative team on this planet right now than Riot Games. I genuinely think they are the best right now.
I think that's as very fair.
A gaming creative team.
Yeah.
There is no one better. I genuinely believe that they crush it on marketing. They crush it on visual direction. They crush it on branding. They crush it on social experience. They crush it on live experiences. Yeah. They, to me, are the best right now. And I don't even think it's close.
I agree. Every time I follow a gaming company, being that I'm a big MMO fan growing up, I played a lot of World of Warcraft. I played New World. I've played Elder Scrolls. I played all these different MMOs. And now that I heard that like Riot is making an MMO, I'm very excited for it.
For sure.
I've always heard the analogy for MMO players for a new one that's coming out called Ashes of Creation. The creative director for that, Steven Sheriff, talks about, he uses this analogy that like MMO players are like hurt puppies or something, where like you give them false promises and they never follow through because there's so many, even Activision Blizzard, there's things that they didn't deliver on in an expansion or whatever. And so everybody's praying that like Riot be like, they know how to make games. They have that creative direction and they're taking their time. And like the people that are behind that team now, who, I follow some of them on Twitter and everything, have been like, hey, like we're announcing things very slowly. We're getting the ball rolling, but it gives me hope to be like, people, hopefully, it brings that energy that like early World of Warcraft had again, with the kind of the thing that's coming out with like Wrath Classic. Everybody, I think, remembers like Wrath was like the height of World of Warcraft in terms of like the subscriber numbers and just the active player counts. And like, it was this huge worldwide sensation with like people standing out for hours in front of a GameStop to get the box or whatever. So like, I'm hopeful that comes around again with the likes of this gaming company, because I definitely think they're absolutely killing it as well.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the IP, like League of Legends as a game doesn't really get me super excited. Wild Rift more than League of Legends, truthfully. WoW's did a move is so much nicer. But the world of Runeterra is amazing. I love playing Legends of Runeterra. I'm a big fan. I love Valorant. The worlds that Riot creates are incredible. And what they do with them in their marketing is phenomenal. For me, Arcane.
Yeah.
Exactly. Arcane's a great example. For me, I'm the most excited for Project L more than I think any other game that I can think of in the past 10 years. So once that hits, I'm really excited for not only the future with Riot, but the future of fighting games. I genuinely believe that right now fighting games are going through a renaissance. And I think that the the powder keg is here in terms of all these years and years of fighting game players having terrible netcode, weird game design, busted characters and patches, just all these problems, and having them have like all their money taken from them for the next version, the next version, the next version of the game. And I think I'm really excited to see the new floor, the new standard of what a fighting game is in 2022 by Riot. That is a free-to-play game that is AAA, and that has never been done before in the fighting game community. With rollback netcode, with crossplay, all these things, like the things that make a fighting game excellent, that we've found in the past, we've known that have been the things that we wanted, but were just implemented within the last 5 years. And now I am very excited to see what the future of fighting games is, because I genuinely believe that fighting games can be the most accessible, one of the most accessible fighting game esports out there. I think easily it's Rocket League. Rocket League is the best and the most accessible, period. I believe fighting games can easily be up there as well too. But it's going to take Riot to set a standard that will make an excellent game, but will follow up with every other Eastern developer, every other Western developer saying, this is what we have to do to keep up with them. And as a result, everyone wins.
Yeah. I think they definitely learn from others' mistakes, but then they also listen to the community. And, you can't make everybody happy. But yeah, I definitely keeping my eye on fighting games. After you told me about Multiversus, I started playing it, and
game's great.
It's a lot of fun. I gotta admit, it is a lot of fun. It brings me back to I only really played Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which I think most people, that was not their favorite, but that was what I got exposed to when I got my Wii when I was a kid. And that's what I played with my brother and stuff all the time. And we were screaming at each other or whatever. And just that energy. So I definitely still have a love for that, because it brings back those kinds of memories and stuff. So I'm hopeful for the future, for that and for Riot. It seems like they know what they're doing. So I'm hoping for the best. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of the Competent Content Podcast. If you enjoyed the first episode and want to continue to learn more about the gaming and esports industry and all the behind the scenes, be sure to follow it on your respective platform. It's available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thank you again so much for watching. Also, be sure to check us out on our social media at Comp Content TV. Stay tuned for more episodes, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.